We are ready.
All right, it's time to call this meeting to order. This is the Parks and Recreation Commission regular meeting. It's Wednesday, October 9th, 2019 at 5:37 PM. So first we'll start with our roll call and attendance. Ms. Rachel?
It's Jessica West,
Present.
Dom Gelsomino,
Present.
Keith Bevan is absent, Jennifer Bobo,
Present.
Joe Greer,
Present.
Michelle Jensen is absent, John Nesmith,
Here.
Craig Steele.
Here.
Can I get an adoption of the agenda?
Madam President, do we need to change the agenda for the changes in our meeting?
They're going to try to resolve those in the next 30 minutes. We'll still do the presentation, we just may not have the technology behind it, correct?
Okay.
So we'll stay with the same agenda and have to adapt if we need to.
Madam President,
Yes, Commissioner
I'd
Steele?
like to make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Next item is the approval of the minutes
Madam
for,
President,
yes, Commissioner Steele?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes for August and September special meeting.
Love it
Second.
when you combine them. Thank you. Commissioner Gelsomino, seconds. Can I get a vote for all in favor?
Aye.
Any not? Motion granted. Next is announcements. Unfortunately, this item is for me, and it's sad that we are having to say goodbye to our youth commissioner, Abby Hutchins. She wasn't able to stay with us for a very long time, but we really appreciate her willingness and initiative to join the commission and to be involved and to have interest in serving in a public volunteer role. So we do appreciate that, and it's unfortunate that she has to leave us so quickly. So, but it sounds like she was just filling the remainder of our previous youth commissioner's role that ended. So it's just going to be a situation where she's not renewing the position. So we'll have to reach out and hopefully find another wonderful youth commissioner candidate, because they do provide a great outlook and view on the different projects that we have. And it's always nice to get their input and feedback. So we'll look forward to hearing about our future youth commissioner. Next item, unfortunately, Mr. Steve Sidaway is sick, so I believe Mike is going to talk to us about our NPR facilities tour debrief. Thank you, Mr. Mike Barton.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to have a conversation with you and a debrief on our parks and facilities tour that we conducted last month. We do this every year where we come in afterwards and we wanted to just see from you how you think it went. Are there any things that we can work on to improve for next year? I think the main questions that circulate, at least amongst staff members every year, is the time okay? Is the time of year okay? Transportation okay? Is the length of the tour and the variety, are those the things you want to see? Is there something else? So I will stand for questions and appreciate any feedback you have or any suggestions that we can improve on for next year.
Madam President,
Commissioner Steele?
I thought it all went really well, Mike. I thought the time was good and everything else, so the parks were relevant and everything that's going on, so I just thought it was a good job, another good job this year.
Yeah, we had there was a lot to look at this year, and I think what we're finding as time goes on too, we could look at things north and south, and now we can't. It's either north or south, so it's just the fact of a growing community. So thank you.
Madam President,
Commissioner Greer?
I particularly like that you had some equipment that we could operate, and
Yeah.
that you
Okay.
had the Parks and Rec staff there. So I thought that was kind of fun because you get to
Okay.
see some of the things that are actually operating.
Yeah, some of the hands-on
In
stuff
heels, right?
is
I've never
Run it
been
like
so
a pro?
excited to tour bathrooms, so, I mean, I thought it was lots of fun. Look at the facilities, see who gets to go where, what we've added, how we've organized everything, make sure that the signs, the whole layout for the home court, I think is just fantastic. It was really nice to get to walk through everything and really kind of talk through the design and implementation of that and what's to come, so.
Okay.
More equipment
Really
might have been
enjoyed
nice
it.
because Joe hogged it all.
I think I saw Jessica
There were
on
like
a
3 or
mower.
4.
She looked like a pro.
Yeah, she did. She was all about it.
That was a lot of fun. It was
Yeah.
nice. And it's also really nice to talk to the different staff too.
Yeah.
Having the
Okay.
staff there to really talk about their priorities and some of
Yeah.
the things that their day-to-day is always really helpful and useful
Okay.
in understanding their needs.
Yeah.
So
Good,
that was
perfect.
wonderful.
Keep having some of the staff members that you don't regularly see
Yes.
there to meet and ask questions if you
Yeah,
have them or
and
whatever.
Learn about their
Yeah.
tasks and,
Yeah.
things that are important to them or, that's really great feedback, so.
That's
Madam
good.
President,
yeah.
I was just going to say the same thing. I took the opportunity to speak to quite a few of the staff members, and they know their stuff.
Yeah.
It was
yeah,
it was
yeah.
fascinating conversations to learn a lot more about the parks that we normally don't get to hear or see just going to them.
Yeah, bring questions, your yard questions in next time so you can get some advice from them, because they are really smart. They're really good with, they know how to grow grass. They're really good.
Elroy's got the trees covered, so we're good.
Right, we got that covered. The guys grow grass, it's all good. So if you think of anything just offline or outside this meeting, send us an email, and every little bit helps.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep, wonderful tour. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Now we have our Mrs. Shelley Houston. Our upcoming events.
Hello, commissioners.
Hi,
If one more
Shelley.
person comes up to me and says, "Aren't you glad summer's done, so now you can just kick your feet up and relax a little?" I'm going to sock them in the nose. Anyhow, I'll give them a sock from you too. Anyhow, I gave you the community calendar for the upcoming events. I would call to your attention that next week we're going to have a presence at the Happy Healthy Kids Resource Fair at the library. I'm going to be up at the Sun Valley Jazz Festival jazzing. So Jenna Fletcher, our activities rec coordinator, is going to do that for us. I also gave you for October 18th a little invitation for the grand reopening of Fuller Park. And at that time, we'll also dedicate one of the youth ball fields to Charlie Roundtree for all of his contributions to the community and his active role in youth athletics over the years and decades. So you're certainly invited to that. We'll hope for better weather than today when Boise Parks and Rec opened a park with an ice cream social this afternoon. So that was unfortunate weather timing. So hopefully hope for sunshine and blue sky. Then we're just constantly busy. There's a mayoral and city council candidate forum that the youth council is hosting on the 21st. The 23rd, we'll have a town hall meeting over at Touch Market, Meadow Lake Village, and that'll be a chance for us to have a presence as well as to maybe recruit some senior volunteers to our volunteer program. Followed the next night on the 24th with our ginormous trunk or treat event. It'll be wild and wacky and crazy, and we'll continue our love-hate relationship with that event. And so it just goes on and on. There's no end. There's Rake Up Meridian, Veterans Day ceremony at Rock of Honor, blippity blah, blah, blah. So you can read about all that. Do you have any questions or concerns at this time for me? No?
I'm excited for the Veterans Day Rock of Honor at the 11th. Is that before our next meeting?
I'm not sure when our next meeting falls. It's literally on a Monday, the Monday that we have off for Veterans Day.
I'm excited for
11 at 11 at the Rock of Honor. And it's a ceremony that lasts about 35 to 40 minutes, and it's uplifting and touching, and there's some music and a little pomp and ceremony. You bring your own little lawn chair or lawn blanket, but it's a very lovely event. We usually have good weather, so you're all certainly invited.
Madam President.
Commissioner Del Semino.
Shelley, are there any changes or anything, is there anything new, actually, I should say, about Trunk or Treat this year?
Yeah, we're spreading it out over a little bit of a larger footprint because it's such a popular, crowded event. And we're also going to have a special row with about 10 games or carnival-type fall activities. So that'll mix it up a little. The section that's trunk or treat is primarily trunk or treat. Take your candy, keep moving. Take your candy, keep moving. But like I say, there are some groups that have been given permission to be in a special section where they can offer a game or a craft or a bit of an activity where the pace will slow down a little. They have a little more space. We're watching this event closely. It's kind of a monster of our own creation, got a little out of control, a victim of its own success. We're looking at maybe changing it more into a Halloween or maybe even a harvest festival. Nothing's happening right now. There's just some talk and thought about what does this event need to be and how can it be improved, or does it need to be changed so it's not just a candy grab. We want it to be a little bit more meaningful and engaging. So for now, it's very similar to what we're used to in the past. But like I say, with thoughts towards the future, but some tweaks and changes.
Madam President, for a follow-up. Shelley, has there ever been a consideration, just because in this particular year, has there ever been a consideration of moving it to a Friday versus, I know to this year it fell on a Thursday on a school night.
I could not tell you what the thought process was.
Okay.
It's too late, of course, to change it for this year.
Right.
Duh. But anything's open for suggestion. We're even thinking of maybe doing more of a daytime, like I say, a harvest festival and costume stroll, or you're trying to mix it up a little. We used to have the Scarecrow Festival, and there'd be square dancing and the street dance and the blah, 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 and the pumpkin bowling and the Scarecrow contest. So we don't know. We're open to imagination. So, but for now, it is what it is, and we're going to see how it goes, and I'm sure it'll be huge and successful. But then it'll be time for us to kind of revisit and rethink what makes sense.
So one of the big changes this year, right, is that we're going to be accessing it from any path, you can
Yes.
access from anywhere,
Yes.
basically.
We used
Any
to have this
direction.
envision that everyone would enter here and move in the clockwise mode. And in the real world, people don't move like that. It doesn't work like that.
Well, there are people that cut, and then there are people who sit in line
Of
for 45
course,
minutes.
of course.
And it's like
So
kind of
we've tried both
upsetting.
ways, where you say, here, get in a single line and snake around in a single, or we've tried, keep moving, go anywhere you want, do anything you want. So, I don't know. I think we're trying to say, once you kind of find your groove, we're asking that people move in, I think, a clockwise motion, but people just can't be controlled like that when we're talking about 8,000 or 10,000 people.
But
You
so
know.
will we do some signage, though, that states, enter anywhere?
Yes,
but
I
in a
wish Renee were here.
clockwise?
She
Like,
knows
is there
more
going-
about it.
It just seems like, with so many people, like a lot of signage to just let them know, try to move in a clockwise.
I'll
You can
talk to
enter
Renee,
anywhere, but
or I
move
can
it
touch base with
clockwise,
you about it. Mhm.
Because it does seem like that's the biggest feedback is
It's a
just
struggle.
people trying to figure out
Exactly.
where they should go and people being rude to others because
Exactly.
they feel like they were cut in
It's a
front of.
struggle, and that's not rudeness
So-
is not the Meridian way. Write
No.
that down.
Always be nice.
But we'll see.
Is,
Okay, anything else at this time?
Madam President, Shelley, is it the same layout as last year?
With a few tweaks, I think.
Few
I think.
tweaks,
I think.
I
wish
they're
I
widening,
knew.
they encompassed a larger area, I believe is what she said.
Yeah, it's a little bit
and
larger
she kind
footprint,
of-
but I couldn't tell you exactly where or why. She's rethought, where are the food trucks, and is there going to be? There's not going to be that big giant stage because that kind of block. I don't know. Renee has the vision. So if you have any questions about it or want a little more detail, Renee White is your gal. So, or should I say, she's your ghoul? Okay, are we good?
I think we are. We
We're
really
so good,
appreciate
we're
it. Thank
bad.
you so
Okay,
much.
goodbye. Thank you. Happy evening.
Right. Perfect. I was like, I think I've seen it. That's what I was saying. All right. Next up is the Commission Christmas Float. So this item is for me. Woohoo! So in years past, we've kind of, well, in the last few years, we've been having like a theme of Elf on a Shelf. Meridian Parks and Recreation Department provides a wonderful float for us with some lights, and we're going to have our Meridian Parks and Recreation Commission sign back on it this year, from what I understand, so that's exciting. But we still have the opportunity to kind of create a theme or try to make it unique and exciting for children and people in the community, and so we are hoping that our fellow commissioners, one, are excited and plan to be on the float, so if we could get some feedback on who does think they'll be able to be there, because that date has already been determined, and it has been shared, but I don't see it on the public events right here.
Madam President, it's December 6th.
Luckily, we have the president of the Christmas committee right here. So, so basically, this item is just to talk with amongst us and to identify if there's a theme that makes sense, a theme anyone wants to propose, some new ideas, some ways to make it fun, anyone, not just commissioners, and to find out who believes they'll be available for the Christmas float activities. So we can start with any commissioner anyway, if anyone has any ideas. Otherwise, we can continue with the elf on a shelf. If everyone still has their kind of costumes, and we could maybe try to accentuate that a little bit, make it a little bit more exciting. Some people thought we were, what did they think you were before your hat stood up? They thought you were Santa,
I
right?
thought I was Santa, yes.
So they thought we were all Santas
A,
there for a few minutes?
A keto diet Santa.
A keto diet Santa, that's unique. At least you have uniqueness. Commissioner Steele, were you going to add something?
I think that the elf thing's probably a good idea because it's supposed to be a workshop. So I think that works. I don't know if the hats and stuff that we've had in the past portray that as well, but then I don't know what kind of hats you'd have for an elf, so.
Madam
Big
President.
ears with points, I don't know.
Madam President, to
Commissioner
add
Gelsomino?
to Commissioner Steele's, I guess one other suggestion we could do is go the traditional route of, if any of us are familiar with the Santa Saves Christmas special with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from the 1980s, just multicolored hats, anything that's blue or green or yellow, just festive colors that aren't red, and then outfits or shirts or whatever that may look like in that same color scheme.
So, so I'm hearing that we want to go to kind of like everyone dresses up as their own version of an elf kind of thing?
Or you could do the Santa hats, just different colors.
Right.
Reindeer horns with the nose, that's resonant, I'm thinking.
Well, so this isn't something that we have to really decide tonight, maybe just come up with.
Oh, now she
I'm
wants to
I'm not sure I'm doing the nose. But we can, so, but are we not wanting to do, are we kind of wanting to go that route, like we come up with our own unique colors and
Yeah,
kind of
we
make
can do
it
that.
festive? Does that sound good to everyone?
It's more so to avoid confusion.
As long as we're in agreement to dress up and not look like regular people on a float, I'm
Joe's
in
gonna
favor
give us
of
an
it.
idea 'cause
Matt.
She never rides
Just
with
Yeah.
the
because I feel like, well, yeah, you,
Madam President, yes, I was going to mention that I usually set up the stage, I manage the decorations, but I'm managing, Renee is going to let me manage the entire production down there, so that's why I'm not usually on the float, which is sad.
and I completely understand that. I wasn't trying to,
But
I was just
I-
trying to find out if we will have
Yeah.
commissioners and what their kind of ideas are. I think like the first year or two, we showed up and wore hats, which was great, but then we kind of just like with people and hats and nobody recognizes us because we're just regular people. So to make it fun and interactive for the kids, I feel like when you dress up and you actually have some cohesiveness in costume, it makes the whole float more exciting for the kids. And
Get
that's really
Santa
what I
hats
feel
in
like.
blue and green and
Yep.
pink and everything now, so just as long, maybe we just stay away from the red.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then,
Madam President? Are you saying elf on the shelf with different colored hats, or are you saying not elf on the shelf?
I don't know if we really want to go with an elf on the shelf, because I don't know if anybody that just sees the float would get it.
So in the last couple of years, that's what we've tried to do, but then there's been some confusion that we're a bunch of Santas. So, anyhow, well, to be discussed more. We could do it in email, but it sounds like everybody's come up with some other colors and make it fun and it works. If we have a, assortment of different options. So, didn't mean to get us too in-depth in this, but but I just want to make sure everyone's thinking about it and preparing some kind of costume, so we do kind of dress up and
Around you.
Madam
something to
President,
look at. Yes, Commissioner?
I really liked when Steve's daughter had the Grinch.
Yes.
We had a volunteer
Costume,
for the
so-
Grinch.
I just reach out to, she did an awesome job, so.
She's
I just
not
vote for
available
that.
this year. I did hear that on our tour. She will not be available. She's moving. There was a volunteer to be the Grinch, but I'm trying to think of who that was. I think it was it Abby? And now she's not on our commission. We probably have to find a new Grinch.
No?
She's on the stage.
Oh, darn it, you can't be the Grinch.
Oh. So it was our own Commissioner Gelsomino.
All right.
There you go.
Okay. So, that was enough of that topic.
Once you brought out the Rudolph nose, that was it.
We gotta keep moving. New business, Ada County Parks and Waterways update. We have a presentation from Mr. Scott Coburg, the director. Is the presentation available, or we'll let you direct us?
Madam
Welcome.
President, Commissioners, staff, unfortunately, despite Rachel's best efforts, we were not able to resolve the IT issue. I think it fried my thumb drive in the process. So I don't have an appropriate backup. What I can do is provide you with a very brief overview of Ada County Parks and Waterways, and then Rachel and I discussed at your pleasure. If you'd like to reinvite me in November, I'd be happy to provide you with the presentation. I think you'd appreciate the photos more than hearing me talk. So with that, like I mentioned, I can give you a brief overview of what a couple of the items that we do at Ada County Parks and Waterways, if that suits you.
Wonderful.
Okay. It'll be a lot more brief than the 30 minutes allotted. So I'm the director of Ada County Parks and Waterways. Our headquarter facility is Barber Park. At Barber Park, we're primarily known for the Boise River float season. We do a lot of other things too, though, and that's a big part of the presentation I want to provide to you is just what Ada County does for Parks and Waterways in the community and what the Board of County Commissioners does to support Parks and Waterways. In addition to Barber Park, the waterways component of our department is actually affiliated with Lucky Peak. A lot of times folks think that we operate the river. We actually, in fact, do not. We have 100 dock strings at 16 recreation sites at Lucky Peak, and we manage the county vessel fund for waterways improvements in the county. And the majority of our boater registration fees are spent up at Lucky Peak Lake, and that's where our docks are managed. So we have quite a few facilities up there, quite a few improvements we made over the last few years, including the addition of some low-profile hand-launched craft docks to support a program in the Boise community for youth sailing and youth sailing lessons. It was a collaborative effort. We did get a couple of grants from Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation's Waterways Improvement Fund over the past several years, and we've implemented this program that's now launched for the first time this year. So if you go up to Lucky Peak, you'll see young students learning from Southern Idaho Sailing Association instructors and Boise City community ed staff learning to sail these small boats called lasers. It's a really cool opportunity that doesn't exist in too many other locations. So we're really proud of that waterways component. And back to the Barber Park and the float season component, I'll emphasize a couple of items that I really want to cover in the presentation as well, but we did just see a record-breaking season for floating the Boise River. I think most of you are aware it's a 6-mile stretch of recreational floating from Barber Park to Ann Morrison Park, and we saw a 25% increase over last year. Last year was a record-breaking year. Now we've seen a 25% increase in the gross revenue component of the float season, which is the management of our rental facility and shuttle operation and parking. So we're really kind of off the charts. I'm sure you are too here in Meridian. I know you had your facilities tour during your last meeting, it sounds like last month. And really that's kind of the intent of my presentation when I'm able to give it is sort of a virtual tour of everything else we do and then emphasizing that float season component. So with that, I know that's somewhat vague and doesn't provide you a whole lot of information, but I will stand for any questions if you have any at this time.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I'm excited to see the little boats once we see those. It sounds like that's a useful tool and a lot of fun.
Sure.
That's pretty interesting, and 25% is a huge increase, so you must be very proud and excited because 25 this year, record season last year. We're all just growing exponentially, so.
Madam
President.
President, yes, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Commissioner.
how many people a year float the Boise River?
Our estimates are between 150,000 and 200,000. Madam Chair, Commissioner, my apologies. And I think you know, what we saw this year, the incredible component of that, so the 25% increase is in daily gross revenue. That's our best measurable, is daily gross. What is the influx on a daily basis? And we achieved that 25% increase in 15 fewer days. So last season was a 74-day season. The 2018 season, my apologies. And then this season was only 59 days, operational days. And so we're seeing a higher volume of people in a shorter period of time. I think it's just a testament to the growth in the valley, those types of activities that are sort of the to-do list for when you visit this valley or visit Idaho, really. You must float the river. You must go on the Rich Rivers system. You know, those are the things that folks are now emphasizing. And hotel concierges are telling people that visit, hey, here's what you do. You go ride a bike on the Greenbelt. You go float the Boise River. You go explore Rich Rivers foothills. Hike Table Rock is what they say. So it's a blessing and a curse. The challenge is, how do we adapt to that increase in volume? So Barber Park experiences capacity, and this is the interesting part of the presentation to me, just seeing the volume of humanity, people, and cars that enter Barber Park on any weekend day in the summer. We end up closing the front gate multiple times. We're at capacity, and it creates a little bit of havoc in the surrounding neighborhoods, and we're currently working through how to address that in the coming years, because we did not foresee this happening consistently, and now it's just sort of the new normal. We have 177 parking stalls on asphalt, about another 323 in an overflow parking field for about 500 spaces, and on the busiest weekend days we park 1,000 cars. So we're packed.
What's the percentage between weekend and weekday? Do you know?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, yeah, on weekend days, the average is about, again, the busiest weekend days are 1,000 cars. The average throughout the season is about 770. Again, that data is on my slide. For weekdays, it's more in the 400 range for parking cars. We don't shut down the front gate during weekdays. We did this season for the first time ever. I was on my heels a bit after the 4th of July, and we saw that we weren't going to be able to deal with the capacity very well. We hired a traffic control specialist company and 9 employees for every weekend immediately following that first weekend when we realized it was a problem. And that helped to manage the flow, but there's still people driving by Eckert Road Bridge getting, parking and, or honking and cussing. There's a lot of interaction at the front of that gate when you close it, when people want to get in. So I'm sure you'll see a lot of that kind of capacity here in Meridian. There's just overflowing population in this valley, and a lot of visitation too, tourism.
Madam President.
Commissioner Gelsomino?
Mr. Coburg, thank you so much for your update. When you mentioned Table Rock, it sparked a couple of thoughts. First of all, I want to commend obviously it's been a few years, but you can still see the scorches and how Table Rock was able to be revitalized and picked up after that 4th of July fire. One of the things so that's point number one. Second one was, I like to bring my dog up to Table Rock, and I like to bring friends when we go hiking. One of the things that I've noticed is once you get to the very top and you go down into where the caverns are, for lack of a better word, there is a lot of broken glass shards. Who is responsible for the maintenance and cleanup of that section? Because that's a hazard that I, can't really control where my dog puts his paws, and it would be a detriment to see dog owners who do bring their dogs up there have glass shards from broken bottles and bottle caps. So just as a general question, who's responsible for that?
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner, thank you both for both of those questions. To address the first item, and really kind of both, I'd love to take credit for the restoration of the Table Rock fire. However, that was primarily led by Boise City Parks and Recreation. although I do represent the Rich Rivers Partnership on behalf of Ada County. So Rich Rivers consists of 5 agency partners operating under an MOU. Ada County is one of those partners. Boise City Parks and Recreation has what's called a Rich Rivers Program Manager. That's David Gordon. And David Gordon oversees the Rich Rivers Trail System and the management of that. We provide technical assistance and financial assistance to that program. So it becomes the responsibility of that trail maintenance staff under Rich Rivers, and Boise City is what's called the lead coordinating partner for our partnership. I would be happy to communicate your concerns during our next quarterly meeting, which is, I believe, next week. Happy to share that with the group and see what kind of response we get. Fortunately, for the Table Rock site in particular, tends to be one of the highest volume of volunteer involvement areas. So I'm sure that could be a wonderful opportunity, perhaps, to at least mitigate what's currently on site and maybe get more persistent with the cleanup of glass bottles in that location. So if that suits you, I can talk to those folks. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments or questions? Well, thank you so much for your time, and we appreciate all this information, and we're looking forward to the presentation, the virtual one, but this was great, so
Sure.
lots of information.
Thank you,
so
Madam
much.
President. I plan to see you next month. All right. Thank you.
All right, next up, Eagle Island State Park Master Plan Update with Keith Hobbs and Tom Helmer with Idaho State Parks and Recreation. Welcome.
Thank you, Commission, for inviting us. As you might have surmised, I'm not Keith Hobbs. My name is Anna Canning. Keith really wanted to be here. He actually came into work, infected the whole area, and we sent him home as fast as we could. So he really did want to be here, but was quite sick. So I am subbing for him, and along with me is Tom Helmer. And I've got our titles in a second because I want to read Tom's because he's special. But we understand that you've got some questions about the future of Eagle Island, so we're happy to talk to you about that. I should explain the little bit of Keith's role versus my role in the organization. Keith is our operations manager, so he oversees all the parks. I get to oversee the support folks like IT, finances, grants, which is also fun, not quite as much fun as the parks, but he had been to some previous meetings with the City of Eagle, so I'm not quite as prepared as Keith would have been to talk to you, but I think we can get you where you need to be. I did want to point out our mission because we love to tell people our mission, so I wanted to share that with you all because you're all in a similar space. Our mission is to improve the quality of life in Idaho through outdoor recreation and resource stewardship. So that's pretty cool. We get to just make sure people have fun and make sure we keep places that are nice for people to go in the future. And yes, we get excited about bathrooms also. It's it's a big thing. So the next thing, I did want to mention Tom because he's the non-motorized trails program manager. He's kind of new to the role. We had another fellow in there who I think had been there. He was the first and only up until his retirement about a year ago. And I wanted to mention Tom's title because it's the only one in state code. It's law that we have to have a non-motorized trails coordinator. So he is protected while the director gets to stay and Tom gets to stay and the rest of us are at the whim of the legislature and the governor. I think that's funny. Maybe not. Okay, this is an aerial view of Eagle Island State Park. Oh, it is going to work. Please note that north is going to this way, to the right of the page. So Eagle Island is between the two rivers, and then it kind of comes up here. This is a fish and game site. And then we come around here. So here's our entrance road that connects to State Street. Here's Chinden. Linder comes down the hill in this area right here, and then you come up to Hatchery Road, which was our old entrance into the park and has since been closed. This is our primary entrance. Hatchery Road is an emergency entrance. So that just wanted to give you that overview. This is the current master plan we have for Eagle Island State Park, and again, north is going to the right. So you'll see a lot of ponds, campground, lots of pathways, a dog park, a portage, some fishing docks, an amphitheater. This plan was completed in 2006 with a lot of public input. Unfortunately, it's a wildly expensive plan that we'll likely never be able to accomplish. And we're trying to get that word out to folks. It's just really sad that they didn't consider the cost of it at the time. The ponds would require trucks coming constantly for about 2 years to dig all those ponds. So it's not a realistic expectation to still have a park there and create those ponds. So that's kind of, if you're wondering what the future of Eagle Island is, it's a lot of great things, but probably not that many ponds. But we do have an aerial course there now, so zip lining, as well as the ski hill. We're not sure if the ski hill's coming back next year. We think not, but never quite sure. And there's also great opportunities they're looking at setting up an archery course within the park. So those are some of the things going on there. We also have the City of Eagle Pathway Plan. We brought that because that shows all the connections to the city of Meridian for you. So again, we're not quite sure what you wanted to talk about tonight. So with that short presentation, we'll leave it all up to you to ask questions or what you were interested in.
I think we were really excited to find out that there would be connection now to and from Eagle Park on the pathway systems, right? We've never had that before, and Eagle Parks and Rec came and told us that that is the plan in the future. There wasn't like defined dates yet, but we're really excited to connect into Eagle and also to be able to connect into Eagle Island State Park is, what would be the path that would be most likely connecting first kind of idea to see, because once that connection did take place, it would just open up so much.
Okay,
So that we could get from Meridian all the way into Eagle and Eagle Island Park.
and Tom is prepared to talk about what those different colors on those maps mean. Oh, I should explain, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that north is now going toward the top of the page now instead of the right of the page, so we switched it on you. Here's the entrance road. So you can see they're proposing a small pathway into the entrance road to the, and then this is already roadway. That's Hatchery Road. I'll let Tom take over.
Sure.
Because I don't know him. But.
So I spoke with Steve Noyes today he's the City of Eagle Trails and Pathways Director. Did he present to you guys in
Yes,
August?
it was
This
a
is
few
basically-
months ago, and he was like, that's what got our interest so much, is that there would be a connection, and so if we connect to that connects to you, we just
Cool.
widened our.
So basically, yeah, this is kind of the same information. So I won't rehash it for you unless you want it to be rehashed. But this is the map of that connection. So right now, any of the green lines on here are pathways and trails that are under development. So you can see the road in the south is Chinden. I'm sorry, excuse me. Chinden or Shinden, depending on if you're from here originally or not. Right now, there are a number of pathways that are proposed from Chinden going up into Eagle Island State Park. And then there's some access routes off of Eagle Road and Linda Road as well that are currently under development. So those are primarily City of Eagle projects rather than state parks projects. The very northernmost entrance with the green, can you see the green arrow? That is a little bit more collaborative between state parks and the City of Eagle and Idaho Transportation Department as well. So I actually have Steve's, I don't know if you want to see that. You probably saw this map back in August, I'm going to guess, but it's more interactive and I can zoom in a little more if you want to see anything.
So once you get to the Eagle Island State Park, is the pathways already built in the park to
They're
take
already
you all
built
the
in-
way through?
They're already existing in the park, yeah. So you can basically ride your bike from,
One into the other already?
yep. There is a pretty interesting access point on the eastern side of the city, and that's the most exciting one right now. That there's a number of different easements that are currently in process. There's actually one landowner left that will basically extend the green belt into Eagle Island State Park. It's a few years away before it's completed, but that's probably I think, the one that people are most excited about. We can do it. Wow, nice work. So you'll see over here, is this a map you saw from back in August? Yeah, so it's the same one, but it's interactive. I could email it to you if you wanted to see it. But basically, up on the right-hand side are the different connecting points. So let's see. These ones right here are the ones I was just talking about that are. I'm going to zoom in a second. Don't worry. This is a pretty exciting. This is the green belt right here, and so these pieces right here are all being realigned, and then there's easements that are currently in process with private landowners, and then this connects in with the state park, and this is a current parking area, and we'll connect in with the existing trails at the park. Specifically from Meridian, there is the Locust Grove pathways, and so right now we have a number of. This blue line is Meridian. It's a, I don't know where the city of Meridian is. The white lines are current bike. That's Chinden right there. The white lines are bike paths. The green ones are current pathways that are under development, and that's with ITD and with the city of Eagle. It's probably the most exciting from this area, and then.
What's the yellow?
The yellow means gravel. It's a yellow is an existing trail that's a gravel trail, basically, so a soft surface trail. Thank you. And then anything that is orange is also an existing trail. Again, these are proposed, these are under development right now. These are pathways from crossing from Chinden onto Linder.
Are they currently widening that stretch there, or?
That is I cannot answer that question. I don't know. So, it was kind of helpful to. Am I zooming around too fast? I would. I can forward you this tomorrow. I'll send you my evening card if you want to see it.
Now, with the Locust Grove one, where you have that top arrow, does it just dead end right there?
This one right here?
Yeah.
I believe that connects in with the existing trails in the park.
Would it actually get you all the way into the park?
Yep. Yes. You don't know it does? Oh, sorry.
Double check that. We're not going to hold you to it. That was.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't think so.
And then finally, there's some coming in from Star on the west side. So this is a current pathway being developed going into Star and then eventually into Middleton, I believe. So this will connect all the way out. This is, again, with the cities of the county and the counties and with ITD are all developing this.
How close are you guys to having a full connection on the green belt all the way out?
I think it really depends on, there's basically one landowner, they're waiting on the easement, so it depends on how long they want to, how long that takes. And we are not actually involved with the negotiations with that one, so that could be, a few months or decades in how these things work.
That could have a big effect on you guys in traffic.
Yeah, it will, so absolutely.
Looking Peak to Eagle Island.
It's exciting, that's great. Any more questions?
So I have a couple. Just when you mentioned that the ski hill's going away, is that the tubing hill? Are you referring to that same hill?
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen this year, or next year it's not going to happen, but it is happening this year?
There was a number of, Madam Chair, Commission, sorry. Madam President, Commission, sorry. There we go. I believe that the Snow Hill owner just has decided not to come back this year, but I'm not 100% positive on that. I can get you that information if you'd like.
Well, I'm sure you'll make it available public. I was excited and looking forward to it. I thought that was a lot of fun, so.
And if that particular person isn't interested in coming back, we could release a concessionaire opportunity for anyone to come back and do that, so that, you know, the hill's there, the opportunity is there. So we will, I can follow up with Mr. Hobbs and get you that information for the upcoming year, because I'm not sure on that. But that does bring up programs. You know, we've been talking about physical connections, and those are great for kids to be able to ride bikes. But on the programmatic side, we have two very popular parks in this county, and Eagle Island is one of them, Lucky Peak is the other one. And we are always looking for partnerships. So if you know, transportation becomes the difficult part, but you know, our Junior Ranger program has become hugely successful, and Lucky Peak is engaged in that. We also have folks at our headquarters that do boating safety and boating programs, and that can be part of that. They were involved with the sailing improvements that have been made to have that club start there. So there's all sorts of things we can do aside from the physical connections. We, you know, there's lots of opportunities to partner and do things together, and I think it would be great. We need to reach out and involve our communities more. We're hoping to do that. So.
Wonderful. Commissioner Gelsomino?
Madam President, thank you. I appreciate both you and Commissioner Steele giving me at least a few more minutes to find the minutes from the July meeting where I had asked a question, and I just couldn't find it, but I was able to find it because I did have a question for our state representatives. And Ms. Canning, one of the questions I asked Mr. Johnson when he gave his update in July regarding Eagle Island State Park, one of the questions that I had for him that was more geared towards an answer from the State Department of Parks and Recreation was that several of the times I've gone to Eagle Island State Park, I've noticed a lot of flammable dry brush and goat heads. When I posed the question to him, I said, what is the City of Eagle's vision in relationship with the Idaho State Parks ownership as far as what Eagle Island State Park will look like within 5 to 10 years, and particularly in that area of clearing out that flammable dry brush and any goat heads that are currently there.
Weed management is a huge issue for us. There's no doubt about it. We work on a very small budget, and we have one resource manager that covers the entire state. And dryland grasses is, particularly cheatgrass, is a concern. We're constantly working to do the best we can. As new uses go in there, we can manage it a little bit better. They do have a farmer that comes in and farms a portion of that property in the year, and then at some point they mow it down so that they can get parking there for different events in the fall. All I can tell you is we do the best we can, but it's an issue for sure.
Absolutely. I had no doubt in my mind that you do. It was just a question that I had thought of at the time, especially during hot summers and dry summers, that could be just a matchbox if anything were to catch fire.
Madam Chair, Madam President, members of the commission, I will tell you the last fire that happened in Eagle Island State Park was the park manager was going along the fence line and clearing brush, and he set a telephone pole or a power pole on fire. So that was the last fire we had there. It did get contained rather quickly. He was properly chastised and embarrassed for over a year on that one, but that was the last fire we have had there. So we haven't had too much problem. It's very wet down there, and because it's between the two rivers, it stays wet for a long time. So it's not as dry as perhaps at some other parks. I can give you an update on what's completed recently or in the process. They're not very exciting projects, but I can tell you what we've done down there We've reinforced the roof structure at the west shower house bathroom. And in partnership with ACHD, we re-chip sealed the parking entrance road to the parking area. We've got some work going on. There used to be a prison farm down there. And our architect on staff has been very interested in the historical aspects of that prison farm. So she's kind of taken it on as a side project and is looking at what we might do to interpret that prison farm and preserve those structures in the future. And we're currently bidding an aeration system for the pond, and that's pretty exciting because that pond gets stagnant, and sometimes we have to close it because it gets too stagnant, but having an aerator in there will be good. In the past years, we've been trying to get more water in there. It's fed by an artesian well, so we've gone and redug the artesian well, so we've got a little more water in there, and always trying to improve that pond, which is hugely popular if you've been there.
That filtration project, when is that planned to be implemented?
The aerations, yeah, it's just getting more air in the ponds that we don't get as much moss build up. But it naturally, it just seeps out into the rivers. It seeps in and seeps out. It's not connected to the rivers at all. And we've got ongoing efforts to get sewer down there, which is a huge task for us. But we've been saving money, and we hope to get moving on that and on the design drawings next year. So it's in our upcoming budget.
Nice. Thank you so much. Thanks for that information. That's wonderful. Is there any questions or concerns from anyone? Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It's really good to know what's going on in our surrounding communities so that we can initiate those partnerships when the opportunities arise. So that's really wonderful.
And yeah, and again, thank you for inviting us. It was nice to come back. I know a few people around here. So, and it was, we are always looking for partnership projects. We also have significant grant programs for trail development and things like that, so we can help. Unfortunately, they come with huge strings attached to them, which the city's had to deal with over time, but they are a source of funding. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, our next item is open space survey discussion with Cameron Ariel, the Meridian Community Development Department Director. Welcome.
Madam President, members of the commission, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity. Talk about a big topic in our community. Many of you are aware we're going through a comprehensive plan update. And so, in community development, this is kind of top of mind. And this is our effort to really kind of get out in front of some of these things that we know will be basically forthcoming even after the adoption of the comp plan. So what I'd like to just run through with you tonight is just the survey to kind of give you a point of focus. Really all I'm looking for is feedback on the survey itself, and then kind of your nod to go forward with pushing it out to the public. To give you just a little bit of context, we've already spoken to the P&Z Commission, as well as the Historic Preservation Commission, you all, and we have had conversations with the City Council as well. So we're just trying to make sure we get a good understanding of what our, what I would call our more informed stakeholders feel about this issue, and then really pushing it out to make sure it's usable and provides really good feedback from the public. So I'm just going to quickly run through here. Really where a lot of this stems from is, strategic plan objective 1C3, which is, as you can read there, is to identify and assess the feasibility of areas within the area of city impact that could be preserved for open space, historical significance, or cultural heritage. So a lot in that, but what we've kind of discovered is, certainly through the comp plan process, is that there's a lot of opinion, if you will, about what open space means. And so in order for us to kind of tackle this and to really have a good conversation, and then ultimately a plan of action, proposed plan of action to accomplish this objective, we really need to kind of start at that point. And really that's what we're trying to accomplish with this survey. And as you can see here, we're really kind of pointing to that tactic one, is to understand what the community values. So what does that look like? How do we do that? And hence the survey. So I'm going to actually, Rachel, if you can click over to the website. I'm going to actually run you through the actual view of the, it's going to be in the Chrome, yeah, that one. Yep. So you all should have received this. This actually represents a slight modification. This has been vetted by, again, the Historic Preservation Commission and the P&Z Commission, and you would have seen an earlier draft. So this is the most recent draft of the survey. So what you can see, and I'm gonna, if I can, Rachel, I'm gonna kind of drive a little bit. What we first do is try to do a little bit of screening. So first of all, are you a Meridian resident? If you're not that we don't care what you have to say, but at the same time, we kind of want to make sure we're targeting our citizens. How long have you lived here? I think this is an interesting, we're kind of looking at this from an analytical perspective. Is there something that we could do from a cross-tabulation perspective of, based on how long you've lived here, does that influence how you look at these ideas? So it would be further on in once we receive the information. And then, do you work in Meridian? Again, just another interesting cross-tabulation variable. Where do you work? So what we've discovered through the comp plan, and Mayor Tammy and others talk about this quite a bit, is that there's a lot of folks that live, work, raise a family, play in Meridian, but they maybe don't do all of those things in Meridian. And this kind of comes to, I think is very relevant for this commission's work, your vital work, is that our parks are attractions. People come here from all over the place to recreate, to be in our community. And so we want to kind of understand what does that look like, again, from a cross-tabulation variable. So then we get into it. We basically ask how you perceive or how you would rank what open space means to you. And we tried to be pretty specific with this. Again, this has kind of been vetted through an ad hoc committee and then through the various commissions, and then to also give concrete examples of that. So if I didn't know what a multi-purpose outdoor urban space meant, I could go to this website and kind of get, oh, that's kind of what that means. So we can kind of get a feel for that. And as you can see, just even within our ad hoc committee and the various commissions' feedback, you already have a very diverse view of what open space means. But again, of course, what we're trying to glean from this is, well, what are those priority meanings that maybe the majority of our citizenry thinks of, and therefore we can focus on those. Let's see. And then based on your ranking above, would you support the city in purchasing property for open space? So now it becomes operative, right? Yeah, I mean, we all would love, tracts of land to recreate in, hunt, or, whatever our open space use is. But now, are you willing to pay for it? If no, what would you value or have us focus on? I guess I got to put in something there, dang it. Let me restart. You actually have to do the survey in order to go through the survey. So you can see if you said no, then there's really no reason to, continue the survey, because they don't value that, and so we need to, and that's okay. That's good information to know as well. So we'll say yes here, and then that will kick us to the next portion. Would you support the city in purchasing this specific type of then pathways, multi-purpose outdoor urban spaces, nature preserves, historical significance, working farms. And then in order to acquire any of your preferred open space choices, how would you want that decision to be made? So basically, are you comfortable with the council making that decision? Are you comfortable with impact fees or a fund balance, appropriation for the procurement of that? Or would you prefer that the public vote on that? Or other, although I don't currently know of any other means by which you could procure that. And then we have just some general demographic questions, again, for cross-tabulation purposes. So with that, that's kind of the survey. I could show you the results of the commissions. I think a few of you even participated. Again, that's just kind of certainly not scientific or anything that we'd use, but anyway, with that said, I think that open space is definitely an issue that our citizens are concerned with, and we're hearing that not only through the conversations on the comp plan, but certainly even through just the formulation of this with the various commissions. So would love to get any feedback you have on the survey itself, and maybe a discussion about moving it forward. So, Madam President, stand for any questions.
I'm surprised that they have the others, like you had that other form at the end of how to, but there was also another one that kind of sounded like an open text field. So is there somebody who's kind of trying to summarize some of those and group them together to do that analysis, or?
Yeah, so that's actually me.
Okay.
I have a research background and can conduct these in a scientific manner. And so so that's the approach with the survey, is to have it be as scientific as opposed to being like a poll or, kind of more of an indicative research or anecdotal. This would be, no, this is what our population thinks, and within a margin of error and the whole shebang.
And then you said the plan of action. So the results of this survey, your plan is to push this out to the city residents. And then what is the timeline on that versus when you will have a plan of action, and who approves your plan of action? Do you already have funding kind of? Is this already in place to be acted on as soon as you get those results, or?
So, Madam President, yes. So, quite frankly, that we have not gotten to that point, because really that's hopefully what the survey itself will inform us on. It may be, I don't think that will be the case, but it may be that our citizens don't value this. And if they don't, then we wouldn't do any more work, any further work. If they do, then it would be, okay, they do value it, and what do they value, and how do they propose to move forward with that value? That would be what would inform us on those next steps.
And then you would propose that to city council or other entities for approval. So it would be starting, there isn't like an in-place kind of version of this from years past. We're starting from right now.
Correct. Yep, this is our first
It kind of seems like 10
iteration.
years in the behind, but I
Right.
mean, it's good we're starting it anywhere to get an idea. I can't imagine we don't want to keep the open space. I know a lot of people, feedback, myself, we're losing all of our farmland, and we're having all these multi-living units, and it's really upsetting. We're losing a lot of our city, our old previous city's feel, and just what we love about Meridian is kind of becoming lots of people everywhere. So it's just kind of sad that we don't have that already as a action item. But very exciting to hear that you're trying to improve that for the future. So it's good.
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino?
Cameron, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Obviously, I served on the steering committee for a time before the mayor appointed me to the commission on the steering committee for the comprehensive plan. Earlier this year, the transportation department gave us some stunning numbers as to what the size of Meridian and Ada and Canyon County will be in 20 years. So what happens, let's say the plan is approved, a 10-year vision for a 10-year vision. What happens to plan over time as we see an influx, whether the projections of the increase in growth as far as new citizens to Meridian follows true to what ITD has prognosticated for the next 20 years, or if it comes at a quicker pace than they planned. What happens to the plan and the aspects of the plan that are carried out and executed over the next 10 years if we have a stronger, bigger influx of new citizens to Meridian that have different wishes, desires, expectations of our city? What are there ways to amend the comprehensive plan in between its implementation, or are we going to have to wait till 2030 to have that renewed?
Madam President, Commissioner, it's a great question. I think I'll just give you the example of the past comprehensive plan that we are now essentially replacing. There's much of it that we are keeping and basically moving forward because we want to continue those aspects of it. But that's the case in point. That plan was projected to be a 10-year plan. We outgrew it, and we basically the council supported moving forward with this new plan prior to the arguably the useful life of the past plan. I would imagine that would be the same process if we, for whatever reason, just blew through, our projections. Again, we're projecting the same that Compass is and others. So we feel like it's a reasonable projection of the future of our community. But that being said, I would imagine we blow through that and we need to update it, then we would.
Madam President?
Commissioner
I have a
Bennett?
question. Well, it's kind of a comment/question. So one of the early slides asked, how do you define or what do you think of open space? Mm-hmm. And honestly, all the things listed there are not what come to mind for me. For me, open space is nothing. It's open. I mean, it's just undeveloped, nothing, kind of undeveloped land, right? Like most of Idaho. So now, and then I got to thinking, well, that's not really fair. I mean, farmland, this is Idaho, so you drive around and there's farms and that's undeveloped. And I thought, and really parks probably should be included in that. So I started thinking to myself, right? Mm-hmm. But some of those, like a multi-purpose urban space, to me, that's development, right? Mm-hmm. If humans have built something, that's not open space to me. So I'm just curious what the feedback, and maybe anecdotal kind of, what is the feedback when people think of open space? And I realize that it's a challenge because if you have a vacant lot, it may not stay that way forever because we have private property rights, and if somebody owns that, then they have a right to do with it within zoning laws and all that. And so it may be open today, but the city can't necessarily say, it's got to stay just like that. You can't, that's not really how it works within the framework of zoning and some of those things. So I don't know what I'm trying to say other than I guess on here I would put other and say, well, nothing, just open prairie, right? Completely undeveloped. It's not used for anything.
So, Madam President,
which is maybe
Commissioner,
BLM land.
that's actually a good point. you know, I think probably the closest we have is this nature preserve where it says, you know, undeveloped land, natural scenery. And then we reference, you know, I would recommend you check out this website. It's a very, very purposeful nature preserve that they've done in Ogden. I've actually toured this myself and was just kind of blown away by not only the growth that they've seen, so kind of lessons learned, but what the lengths they went to accomplish what you're describing. Just, hey, you know, native everything. Don't, you know, just preserved nature. But no, to your point, I mean, maybe that is another category we could look at maybe expanding. But I think your comment, Commissioner, actually highlights to me the need for this.
Yeah,
Because
no, it's a great
because we've heard many people say, well, yeah, if you produce well, you can see the example here of Indian Creek in Caldwell, even just our neighbor, but there's plenty of examples of, you know, I'm trying to think of some that may be more noteworthy. Oh, well, like Central Park in New York. I mean, it's things like that that are clearly planned and preserved and purchased for open space. You know, people see open space differently. We have a lot in our population that have maybe never lived in a even suburban environment, let alone, you know, ag land and agrarian economy. Maybe they've lived in an urban city their entire, you know, life. So their understanding of open space may be vastly different. So we're just trying to really get to the heart of what this all means and how we, as staff and as a city, look to accomplish what we clearly hear. You know, Madam President, I hear your opinion loud and clear. That's why we're trying to advance this, even in prior to the adoption of the comp plan. So appreciate those comments.
Madam President.
Thank you.
Commissioner Greer?
And to spin off of what Keith was saying, I was thinking, I served on a committee earlier this year. I think it was for the City Development Code. So what I like about this is that you are inadvertently educating people on what open space is, because some of things that were hard being on this committee is that people didn't quite understand a canal is not a natural waterway or natural water feature, and so they were wanting to preserve these natural features that aren't natural. So, yeah, it was really hard to keep my mouth shut. But so I appreciate that you have this, and it's in an application format, but you're also, as people are scrolling through, they're actually becoming educated on what open space actually is, because undeveloped land is just that. It could be a lot that is going to be a WinCo later on, right? And then everybody starts screaming because it's their open space, and it's not really open space. It's just not developed. So I appreciate this in your presentation.
And Madam President and Commissioner, I appreciate your observation of that. That was very intentional. We felt like, yes, we want to solicit the feedback, because that's, quite frankly, the currency, but also take the opportunity to educate, because, you know, we could say nature preserved, but then folks would think, well, where's the undeveloped land? You know what I mean? So we wanted to make sure that we were definitely educating. You'll notice that too in the funding and approval questions. I think there is some misconception out there about how you actually accomplish this. And the reality is if we want to preserve it, we would have to procure it. I mean, for the same reasons we talk about personal property rights, that doesn't just happen. So,
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that observation.
Sorry, Madam President, to comment on that is, where my brain is because we live close to each other over off of North Linder, and the whole Winco, Chinden, Linder, that giant 72-acre lot. I think there's a lot of people, especially in Paramount, that think that's open space, and they want it to stay just like that.
And it belongs.
Completely. Never get developed. And when you say open space, that's what they think, and that anything other than that empty 72 acres is development, and we have too much development in Meridian, it's growing too fast, there's too many people, too many, and that whole thing we get into, and that's where I came to mind. I'm like, yeah, educating people on, well, what does open space mean, and how should it be used, and balancing the city and private property and development and all that. It's a challenge, so good luck. But yeah, that's where my brain was at.
Commissioner Steele?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Does this deal with, or is there another survey that deals with kind of what Jessica brought up earlier, multifamily versus, single family versus commercial, all of that stuff? Because honestly, for me, that's a bigger deal than some of this stuff. Now, there are parts of this that I think are very important, especially being on the commission. But, like Jessica said, when you see apartment after apartment after apartment, let's say you only have 10% green space. Well, 10% green space in a subdivision where you have single-family homes, and 10% for apartment buildings that are 6 stories tall, and there's a ton of them there, that 10% is not nearly enough for the amount of people that are there in that period. So is there another survey that goes with that, or something that deals with that? Because frankly, I'm more concerned with that than some of the other.
Madam President and Commissioner, thank you for that observation as well. So we are acutely aware of that. Commissioner Glassomino, sorry about that, Don, can attest to this. The steering committee as well as the community has voiced similar concerns as well. On the comp plan steering committee, we also had even deeper dive. We had subcommittees on housing. And we have specific policies in there about, how do we get a diversity of housing? There's a lot of policies that are in the plan. So to your point, and specific to, the percentage of open space that is required for development, that is something that we are going to look at post the adoption of the comp plan via policy. There will be there'll be some committees that are generated. There will likely be some other surveys that come out.
Wouldn't you want that in the comp plan? Because these comp plans happen, every 10 years? So if it's not in the comp plan, and I've seen it I've been on the Parks Commission now 19 years. So even with our parks plans that have come up, there's big gaps where we miss it because the city's growing so fast and there's so much that happens that by the time that 10 years is up and you come in with another comp plan, it's too late. You talk about pathway funding. We've only, John and I were talking about it, 100,000 per year with the way we're growing, and we always want to try and depend on development to do that. Well, development can't. There's lots of spots here in Meridian, over by Meridian High School and other places, that it's way too late for that.
Right.
So if we hadn't pushed that off so long, we could have covered that and had more money in the budget already. So we're not after, trying to actually make up for a whole lot of lost ground with this. That's the way I look at this. It's the city, because they got so far behind. Now they're trying to catch up.
Right.
And, exactly with this, and that's exactly what they're doing, is saying, okay, are you willing to put money into this? Because we screwed up. We didn't buy land when we should have.
Right.
Okay? So, to me, if you don't get that in there right now, it's going to be too late.
So, Madam President and Commissioner, appreciate these comments, because I agree. Let me just be a little bit, clarify what a comp plan is and what it isn't. It really is just your high-level policy making. It says, make a connected community, and what that looks like, and what that, from a policy level that looks like. But to your point, we are already starting to form these committees that will give the detail, bad analogy, but it's like putting the wheels on the plan. How does those high arching policies then become practice, become code that then development has to adhere to?
Right. And I agree with you, but from the other standpoint, when developers and people look at that, they don't dig down to the other. For a lot of years, our staff in the parks had to go out and make sure that the developers knew, hey, there's a pathway here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And a lot of times, because of the miscommunication between the P&Z and parks, we miss some of those pathways. You know, because again, you didn't have everybody plugged in to that overall plan and what was going on. And so again, yes, it is an overall deal, but again, that's what people look at, is that overall. And if you don't have some mention of that in that overall plan, there's going to be problems.
And Madam President, to that point, Commissioner, we do have, well, Kim is not here. There, Kim's it. Hi, Kim. So Kim does come to all of our development meetings and pre-applications, and so if there's anything in any property that or subdivision or proposed application that would be impacted and need to have a pathway or a consideration for parks in general, we do have Parks and Rec staff to assist with that. But to your point to the funding, because I think that's an important one, because we can only do with what we have before us. We can't necessarily speak to the past. This is actually an attempt, potentially, to remedy the past. So, for example, if a majority of people say, hey, pathways is a big deal, we need to fill in these gaps, and that's an important thing to our community to do so, well, now this gives us at least the feedback necessary, and potentially if they say, yeah, I'm willing to fund it,
Well, we've
to
had that
actually
feedback
remedy
for
that.
years. I mean, we've had survey after survey in the parks, and they've listed out exactly what's important to the citizens here, but it hasn't affected our budget one penny. So
Therein lies the
why would
politics.
this survey be any different than any other?
Well, and I think that kind of goes back to what I was asking. I was like, so we're gonna put this survey, but do we have like an action plan or anything? Because I think all of us, or the majority of people who are trying to represent different residents in the city, in the community, we've all heard that we're, you know, we wish there was still more open space and everything's getting overly developed. But this kind of seems just like you throw a survey out, then the response is, well, you asked me, you know, I did a survey, whatever happened to that? And you're just gonna build that, I don't know if I want to say animosity, but you're just making things worse if we're really not gonna act on it.
And we
We're
don't
gonna
pick
see
on you
results.
because you're just here to show
No,
us.
I appreciate it. Madam
It just
President.
seems like
But
it's
you
just gonna
give us
make
an
it
ear
worse.
to talk this out, so.
No,
Sorry.
Madam President, I hear you. Quite frankly, that's why we're here. And as staff, we're obligated to do so. We will push it to the extent we can. That's when it then becomes the decision-making of the body.
Madam President. Oh,
Commissioner Gelsomino?
did you have, Joe, did you have? Okay.
She was agreeing.
Madam President, Cameron, I was appointed to the commission right at the infancy of the steering committee, so I didn't get to stay very long. But in the time that I was there, and in the time that Commissioner Greer and I served together in the second phase of, I don't even remember what it was called, the committee where we met with Brian and we spoke, we took the details from the comprehensive plan meetings
Right. Yep.
into.
Subcommittees, yes.
Correct. There was tension that could be cut with a machete by Rambo between the private citizen and the developer. Known without naming names, but they were both very, very passionate about what they wanted. And I'm trying to piggyback off of Commissioner Steele's comments without repeating the question, but within the comprehensive plan, are there or will there be the resources and tools to mitigate this? I don't want to call it paranoia because I'm not saying that our citizens are paranoid, but this sense of distrust between the private citizen and the developer, where the private citizen has made many comments that we all hear here at City Hall that, well, we're all in the pockets of the developers have free reign and they do whatever they want. You know, we want our communities and our parks within our communities to have a central theme that is, you know, well, here we at the Southern Rim want this sort of theme where it's either red, white, and blue or whatever the country feel is. In the northern section, we want this theme. And so what tools, if any, can be applied or have been applied to mitigate that level of uneasiness or distrust between the private citizen, who is very, very important, and the developer, who has an equal importance?
Madam Commissioner or Madam President Commissioner, the answer is that the tools are forthcoming. Like I was mentioning to Commissioner Steele, we're trying to, number one, adopt the plan. We need to get the plan adopted. That gives us, as staff, the framework and the means by which to then add the wheels. So it sounds like we probably have some committee members, interested committee members that would want to be a part of formulating those, whether it be, improved design, whether it be improving open space and amenity requirements within development. I mean, those are the types of policies and tools that we have our current standard, but that we'd be looking to address post-adoption of the comp plan.
Madam President?
Commissioner Steele?
And I don't want to beat up on our developers here at Meridian, because I have to say, I've been on this thing a long time, and we have some awesome developers in this community that really care about the community, what it looks like, and things like that. I think where the issue comes up is when you see all the multifamily units going in, how do you create green space for them and things like that? Because honestly, we wouldn't have a lot of the parks we have today if it weren't for the partnerships and the agreements and the relationships that we have with some of our developers out there. So I don't want to act like we're beating up on them, because again, a lot of those guys have been great to work with.
Right.
But there are some concerns when it comes to what does the city do from here out, and how does the city do some of this on its own without going to the developer and saying, okay, this is on you, you got to do this. Yes, we can see where they
Right.
put in a new development. But again, when you get into the inner city or, over here by Meridian High or wherever it is, where it's already built out, trying to get from Kleiner Park to downtown, okay, the city at that point needs to step up, and it needs to carry some of that burden. So, but yeah, thanks for coming over.
But we
tonight.
really appreciate what you're doing to get this going now.
Madam Chairman, members of the
appreciate your
commission,
patience.
thank you. Thank you for your feedback. I think we're going to have further conversation, obviously, and we're at a pivotal point. We need to get it right. We need to do it right, and we need to make sure that we're addressing a lot of these issues in a methodical way. And hopefully, this is a small step, at least in the open space, regard. But then also, the comp plan will be a big step into, allowing us those opportunities to up the level and make sure that our community is what we want it to be.
We have one more comment.
Madam President,
Commissioner Bobo?
I have a question. Switching gears here to a different sort of question. With the regards to the survey itself, has there been consideration to adding a back button to the survey as the participants are learning what open space is, and they get to the follow-up questions and they, oh, wait a minute, I actually would put funding towards this sort of thing, so they want to reprioritize their choices?
That's a great observation. If there isn't one, we will make sure that there is.
For those of us that are click happy sometimes.
Oh,
click the
dang
wrong
it.
thing.
I didn't mean to rank that so high. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Great observation.
Madam President?
We have a couple more comments
Oh.
going on. Sorry. Do you have
Thank
something
you.
you'd like to say?
Just before Cameron steps down, I would like to thank your department for being such a good partner in trying to keep things from slipping through the gaps. I know that my predecessor, when I worked on the Pathways Master Plan update, he said policy was really, really important in terms of harnessing the development community. And now that we are involved in plan review, I just had a case this week with one of the planners where I had issued some conditions for development for a pathway, and he was preparing a final report, and he said, this is an instance where we might want to make a connection that's not on the plan. It was a development agreement, so we had the latitude to do it. And he said, hey, do you think we should do this? And so I feel like they are a second set of eyes in terms of, we're looking at it. But they're good. They're real partners in terms of being really thorough, and I think we all kind of look out for each other to some degree.
Amen.
Yeah, and then just, I've been here a couple of years, and it's only really within the last year or two that we've ever paid for pathway easements. Previously, that was something that we expected the community to donate. I still don't know why people don't want to do that, but it can take a lot of money and a lot of time to do that. So, Commissioner Steele, I hear your comments and take them to heart, but I think that's an expensive prospect. And we're in terms of policy, we've made great strides, and some of those happened before me, but yeah, it's difficult, and we're going to have to pay for it, and that's something some ice that we're just now breaking. So that's enough. Thank you.
Commissioner Nesmith, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I sure do. I guess I wanted to commend you on your efforts and the fact that it's a huge need, and echo what Kim said. I've been here for, I think, 11 years, and I think the last 2 years is the only time that I've heard anything other than a $100,000 budget to make pathways a priority or whatever. And I don't know how many workshops I've been in, but whether it be open spaces or pathways, it is a grain of sand we can be here for 40 years and never get any of the connectivity unless we make it a priority. So obviously we need, funds. So it's very supportive of what you're doing and need to play catch up. On your survey, the one thing I don't know, I'm not an analyst, but I did notice when you said no, to open space, that you kind of shut down and I didn't know if that would be advantageous to know if you don't like open space, who you are, meaning gender, age, whether or not that is, because I'd like to know, if there's an age demographic that didn't care about open space, and maybe you could, I don't know if that's a marketing thing or whatever, but at least it would be awareness of who's taking your survey, and if somebody doesn't care about that, they got the right to vote either way, but I think knowing, who that is and what demographic they're from would be important as well when you were doing analytics. I don't know if that could be edited or whatever, but.
Madam President, Commissioner, great observation. If it doesn't click to those demographic questions, then we'll make sure that it does if they say no. I think I think we would want to analyze that too. So just as much as we would want to analyze someone that says yes and what that all means, we would certainly want to understand why someone said no. So,
right, if it was an age group or
right.
whatever it was that, consistently said no, I would think that would be as important as the yes. So, and give you more valid reasons for, then you go, who's better park users or open space or whatever, and more things to analyze. But
we'll make sure that that's in there, Commissioner.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And
thank you all for your time and obviously your passion. So makes our community great. And we'll be in touch, obviously share the results and make sure that I've heard it loud and clear, and I agree, it needs to be actionable. So whatever the results are, what are we going to do with them? So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd just add one thing. I'd love to get an email for a link on the survey.
Great. Yep, we'll do that.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We probably need to make sure Rachel has your updated email address. Let's all make sure Rachel has our updated email addresses, because I know I've been subject to that in the past where I changed my email address and thought I communicated it out, but we'll have that resent out and make sure that we have up-to-date email addresses to Rachel in advance of that. So on to our next volunteer program update, Mrs. Chelsea Cantrell. This is your first time presenting, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Madam President, Commissioners, thanks for having me tonight. I am new. As just stated, this is my 6th or 7th week somewhere. It's kind of been a blur. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my history, and then I'll go on to the details of the volunteers. So I have deep roots here in the community. I was born and raised here, hit the border just right though, and went to CUNA schools and then attended Boise State. My family though, my parents, my grandparents, they went to Meridian schools. So I'm really happy to be actually working for my community. What I feel is, I grew up here. So I started my career at 15 with the YMCA. Worked there for almost 10 years. I did everything from sports coordinating to child development, and then I ended my career with the Y as their admin/volunteer coordinator. One thing I learned was I thought the hardest thing to do was ask people for money, but the actual hardest thing to do is ask people for money. So my job there was to recruit and train people to ask people for donations for the annual campaign. So this job here, it's kind of a relief that I don't have to send people out there to ask for money, and our volunteers here just give their time, which you'll see later in my presentation has a large dollar amount on there. I then got a job opportunity with the Idaho legislature, which I learned so much there. So that was a lot of fun, kind of learned politics and understood what I was getting myself into. And then I went and worked for the Board of Education under the Charter Commission. There is where I realized I need to go back to my passion, which is working for the community. Again, going back to the why, that's all I did for 10 years. That's all I knew. And so when this job opportunity became available, I jumped on it. And again, very happy to be here. Got to know a lot of my volunteers here in the last 7 weeks, and the relationships I'm already building there, I just love them. I mean, I know most of you have probably met a lot of our front desk volunteers, and they are so great. So I did find this quote. I think it rings well with our volunteers. It says, "Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love." So I chose that quote because we have such a variety of volunteers. I have met people from England that come in here every week, sit here at our front desk, and talk about their family that isn't even here in the States, but how much they love this community, and that they're begging their family to come here, to be here, because this is a community that they really love. And they've only been here for 5 years, but they want their family here now because they feel like they're part of the community. So, and then you have people who have been here for 50 years and can give me every history and story, and it's so fun just to get to know them, and they all bring something different to the table. So going on to our City Hall, we currently have 29 City Hall volunteers that are here every day on their scheduled shift throughout the week. I'm really excited. I have extended the volunteer hours. We have never had anyone here from 4 to 5 except for on Fridays. So now we do have volunteers except for Wednesdays. We have someone here, except for Thursdays. Every day from 8 to 5. So that position is there's always someone there to greet our community members as they walk through that door. So as of September 30th, we've had 2,832 hours from the beginning of the year. Our volunteers have sat up there. Third grade tours. Has anyone got a chance to see a third grade tour? These are so much fun. So we've had, this year, it's been a little unfortunate. We've only had 2 volunteers able to provide the tours. 2 of our other volunteers that do these tours have been injured and sick. So, but our 2 volunteers that have done the tours have done a phenomenal job. In the picture, you'll see Eva. She dresses up, and these third graders, they love her. The parents, they are just as involved in the tour. She really captures everybody's attention. She spends 45 minutes with them. She walks these third graders up the halls. And the best part is it doesn't disrupt anybody's workday. Eva does a great job on keeping the kids under control. And these are large groups. It used to be half classes. Now they're full classes. So this year, there's 65 classes that we are providing tours for. They are all Meridian schools. And I say Meridian because it's not all West Ada. If the school has a Boise address, they have to provide their own tour. So it's just our Meridian schools. 49 hours of volunteer time has gone into these tours this year, and approximately 1,950 kids have learned about the city of Meridian. Does anybody know what the city of Meridian's name was before Meridian? Anybody? I made the mistake of leaving it on the slideshow, so I'm really disappointed nobody got it, but it's Hunter. So I learned that, never knew that. Eva explained that to me. The reason behind that was the mailman, his name was Hunter, and at the time there was no name for the city, and so all the mail went to him, so they called it Hunter. Interesting little fact. Park ambassadors, they have a new car. They have the 2019 Equinox, so they're really excited about that. They are volunteers. They take it, they keep it gassed up, and they take it to the car wash almost weekly. They're really proud of it. And then the egg received new batteries this year, donated by Idaho Power. Those batteries cost $600, so it was a really nice donation. And then volunteers. So when I worked for the Y, I knew volunteers were really important for our events. But here at the city, these events wouldn't be possible without volunteers. I was at the community block party. It was my second week, and there was only 3 staff members there. It was a completely volunteer-ran event. The staff, we organize it, but it would not be possible to put these events on without these volunteers. For example, too, the Winter Lights Holiday Parade, 150 volunteers. We need that to run this parade. So volunteers are very important. Holiday Classic fundraiser. This is a volleyball tournament that we put on where all the proceeds go to the Head Start program. I have learned quickly that this event, my volunteers love. They get to go shopping. So we all get together. So I'm sure some of you have done that. Has anybody been involved in that? No. Staff, the mayor, we all go to Walmart, and we have a list of children's wants and needs that are through the Head Start program. So all of these children come from lower income families. And what's interesting is on these tickets, a lot of the wants are the same thing as the needs. So a child may ask for a pack of socks as their want and their need. So these volunteers get to go through and, try to study the children. They talk to the teachers, and they go and they brighten these children's Christmases. And then they spend the next 2 to 3 weeks wrapping presents. So you'll see a picture in the bottom right. There is a lot of presents to be wrapped. In the last 8 years, over 2,400 gifts have been given out to over 480 kids. Letters from Santa. So we'll start this the week of Thanksgiving, and our volunteers, they write, they sign, they create, and develop this program for Letters from Santa. They come in, they don't do this at the front desk. We think that takes the magic away from it. But each child that writes a letter to Santa gets a letter back, a signed letter, and it's a lot of fun. The volunteers really enjoy it. Again, I've been told not to forget certain people because I have a list about 20 people that love to be Santa for the afternoon and write these letters.
Santa is very busy because this is on the public record.
Yes, Santa's very busy. Thank you. Last year, I hope the kids are in bed. Last year, there was 1,200 letters written, so, and growing every year. I can't take credit for what I'm going to talk about next. Steve, on my second day, mentioned to me how fun he thought it would be to have a volunteer sponsorship for events. So I took the idea and ran with it. So basically what this is businesses can actually be a sponsor, and by not donating money, but donating hours. So for each event, we'll have a different sponsorship level. For example, I did the Christmas in Meridian. So this would be the Winter Lights Parade. And for 75 plus hours, they could volunteer. And whether that be, they have, 75 people come for 1 hour or 35 people come for 2 and a half. So there's different ways they can hit that 75 hours. And then depending on how many hours they get, you can see they'll get different incentive. So a business logo on the website with a link, mention an event notification, having the DJ give them a shout out during the event, or a mention in social media posts. And then for 50 plus hours, they would get a little bit less, but still some motivating factors. Trunk or treat, same thing. You'll notice it's only for 25 hours. So different events are gonna have different packages. Okay, the next thing is a riddle. I was told you guys like jokes, and when I was 12, I thought I'd be a stand-up comedian, but that never worked out. I'm no Chelsea Handler. Does everybody know who that is? Okay, thank you. I got one laugh. But so here's a riddle instead. It says, it is Halloween, and 3 volunteers go into a haunted house to clean it out. They creep up to the door, a little scared, wondering what is behind the door. They go in, and there is a long hallway leading out into the dark, musty room with 3 doors. They are kind of scared once inside. They try to turn back to get back outside, but when they turn around, the door is closed and locked. They yell for help, but there is only silence. The room is dark, and they look for a light source. They see a light switch and try to turn it on. Sadly, the power is out. They are terrified but have no choice but to follow the long hallway to the 3 doors in the pitch black. Behind one door is a bottomless pit with no end. Behind another door is an electric chair which they must sit in, and behind the last door is a pool full of acid. They must go into one of the rooms of dangers to escape. Which one should they go through? Perfect. No one else in the office got, I didn't ask everybody, but no one else in the office got it. So, very impressed. But I also want to thank you for your dedication. You guys all look great in that picture. Do we have everybody in there? I think so.
Yes, we do.
Great.
That was the first picture we had where everybody was here.
Yes. Okay, and just another reminder, our volunteers are priceless. From January to the end of September, our volunteers have given us, and this includes all of our volunteers, events, front desk, park ambassadors, have given us 4,904 hours of service. There's a value of $19, I think it was $19.78. So that equals $97,688 if we were to put a cash prize on it, cash amount on it. And then this was given to me by a volunteer. Top 10 reasons to volunteer. When you stay home, you get too many telemarketing calls. Your family could use a break from you. You might need help. You might need help yourself someday. It's hard to win a game of solitaire. Soap operas all sound alike. If you don't go out each day, you get old. Why let your boss have all the fun? The car needs a workout. Your mom would be proud. And who cares about money?
Wow.
Any questions?
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino?
Chelsea, I'd like to kick it off with a huge thank you. I have been working at some of the schools lately, and there are schools in more rural areas, but the need for a lot of students and a lot of children is so evident that teachers and school staff are pulling money out of their own pocket to buy their students clothing, because the students are coming to school in clothing that is not appropriate for this kind of weather, but it is the only clothing that they have. And it breaks my heart to hear that. So that is a huge number one thank you. Second of all, it does not surprise me to see Ava on so many pictures, because she is a firebrand. I mean, goes out and does the work, and I mean, it's amazing to see the liveliness and excitement in so many of our volunteers. So I'm excited to see a fresh new face and what the future holds for our volunteers here with you at the helm of our ship. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I do want to point out, Garrett actually started the Christmas volleyball tournament, and he's done a great job with it. And I know Maggie's came in, and she has so many ideas because there is such a need. Our community is growing. So she has some great ideas too. I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chelsea. We look forward to hearing from you next month.
Thank you.
All right. We are on to our final item of the night, staff reports. I am assuming starts with Mr. Mike Burton.
I'll kick it off. Madam President, Commission, Really, the big thing that I'd like to report on is we kicked off the design of Discovery Park Phase 2. And really exciting, we're in the process of developing some concept for that and hope to be in front of you in probably a couple months with those and request feedback and direction and kind of we're excited to show you what we're contemplating. And yeah, that's really the big one. And I guess Fuller Park, Shelley mentioned that one. Friday the 18th, a week from this Friday, we're going to dedicate Fuller Park. We did close escrow on the property, so the city now owns it. And we've made some real improvements out there, even more so than a month ago when you looked at it on the Parks tour. So pretty exciting. Hope to see you there. It's 2 o'clock on Friday the 18th. Shelley said she's in charge of weather. Fingers crossed. It's a nice 65-degree day, and the park looks beautiful. We're really excited. I'll stand for questions.
Madam President.
Commissioner Gelsomino?
Mike, not to pour any salt on the wound as far as the signage at Discovery Park, but do we have an update since the last time we spoke about it?
I'll have to remember the last time we spoke about it.
In about
Maybe it
3
was
weeks?
you and I just offline.
Yes, about three
Yeah.
weeks ago now.
So our fabricator who's making the signs is dragging his feet, and so some of that has been now turned over to Ken McCall, who has done several projects for us. Ken McCall did the Journey of Heroes at Heroes Park, if you remember that one. And he's also doing the summer or the solstice art piece at Renaissance Park, which kicked off. So he's capable of delivering, and he has taken that over. So the update that I have is that the signage has gone to powder coating. And then there's a little bit more assembly that needs to happen. So I'm thinking there's a good possibility we'll have those signs installed by the end of the month. Sometimes you need to enjoy the journey.
Even though the journey's on hot coals.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that. Do we have any questions or concerns for him? All right. Next for staff reports.
All right, I think that's me. Well, Madam President and members of the commission, thank you for having us. And I'll echo what Shelley kind of mentioned earlier today too, is people do say, oh, winter must be slowing down for you guys. You can kind of take a deep breath and stuff. And really that's not the case. In the recreational world, we are busy year round. So some of the highlights we have going on, I'll start with our classes and camps. Right now, Jenna, she has hit the ground running, as you guys know, all the seat shuffle and stuff, but she is currently working on instructor class descriptions and activity guide stuff, kind of gathering that stuff up. She actually is going to have a baby scheduled December 7th, so she is organizing all kinds of stuff and ready to go so that Jake and I can kind of handle the reins when she is out for a little bit with the baby. So she's working on that stuff. Renee obviously is really thinking Christmas and trunk or treat. So trunk or treat's coming up here pretty quick. And with the help of Chelsea and the volunteers and stuff like that, she is kind of getting all the logistics done with that. We met with Christmas as well, and we're kind of waiting for December 6th to get here and get all the logistics done with that as well. Sports, believe it or not, we just ended softball last Friday, October 4th, which historically we try to end around middle of September or earlier September. But with just all the number of teams we had and some of the field stuff that was going on, it extended it in rainouts, obviously, and weather-related stuff ended up going up to October 4th. Kind of a side note on that, we added the 2 fields at Discovery this year, and in turn, we increased our league's 26 teams in one season, which is a pretty big deal. So we're anticipating the same type of increase or similar increase in the spring. So it was nice to see those 2 new fields come online. Also in sports, right now, we have volleyball and basketball and flag football going. and they're already starting to advertise for the winter stuff that starts in January, volleyball, basketball, and those sports. To kind of echo what Chelsea said, the holiday volleyball tournament, Maggie is working with Ross Cipriano, who's over at home court. Those two are kind of tag teaming the organization and logistics of the volleyball tournament too. We've already met with the Head Start program, and they are willing and ready to help out any way they can. So that's actually a really awesome program, as Chelsea said. Home court renovations, you guys saw that. We can use the restrooms now over there. It's been kind of nice. It's been porta potties since May. So we about a week and a half ago, we were able to open up the restrooms. Got some other tidying up stuff to do in Bay 5, which is the flooring, kind of a phase 2 type of thing, and the flooring is in. They just have to install it, and the installer will be there next Thursday. So knock on wood, nothing changes there, but that's a longer process to install that flooring. They're waiting on moisture barrier and stuff like that to get there, and they'll make sure that's all done right. They don't want to rush through it, obviously, knowing that there was moisture stuff there before. So they're also working, I know Jake is working on staffing, and the turnover on the part-time staff has been a challenge, but he's getting it all squared away and ready to go. And then just scheduling the facility. It's already scheduled out through almost next May with different stuff. So got to get on that stuff now to schedule them. And yeah, so and then field reservations, I sent out the applications for that, and we start booking all of next year's fields here in November. So stuff's happening, and that's kind of what's going on the rec side. So I'll stand for any questions if you got any. Anybody?
No, well, thank you.
man.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I guess it's a quiet night
Let me
now.
off
We kind of let it
easy.
all out on
Wow.
the previous presenters. And now we're all putting ourselves in check is what this feels like. But, but thank you so much. Do we have another staff report?
Madam
Nope.
President,
Okay.
typically I prepare a written report that's submitted monthly, so I didn't really prepare comments today.
Oh,
I
that's
would
fine.
stand for questions or improvise something. I certainly have been working on connections, but typically that's a written submittal.
Hey, Emily, it's your turn.
Actually,
Well, you're ready?
Madam President, Commission, I'll fill in a couple of blanks for Emily. She's been busy working for us the last couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, working with Powell to the reimbursement agreement for the parking lot remodel design. We have an agreement that they've agreed to. Actually, they've signed it. We're going to take it to council on Tuesday, where Powell will pay us for half of the design of the parking lot remodel, and then there is also a provision in there that would, should council go forward with the construction of the parking lot remodel, Powell would pay us back over time, similar to what they did with the rest of the park. The rest of the park, they wrote their final check last Friday, I think, and paid off their entire obligation to the city several years ahead of schedule. So Emily's been busy on that. Emily's been busy on the rewriting the forestry ordinance, preparing a priority use agreement with Meridian Youth Baseball for Fuller Park, and school district agreement. So it seems that Emily's been doing a lot, so thank you.
You did have
Well,
something
thank
to
you.
say.
All right, well, thank you so much. We usually don't get, updates from everyone, and I wasn't sure exactly who was going to be doing the staff reports today, so it's nice to get that added information on other individuals we don't always hear about. So we appreciate all you do, Emily, and everyone, and Kim and everybody. So thank you so much. Do we have,
Madam President,
yes, Commissioner Steele?
I'd like to make a motion that we close our meeting tonight.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion granted. We'll adjourn this meeting at 7:35 PM. Thank you so much.